All right, so today we're going deep on Maharashtra.
Sounds good.
You shared this amazing overview with me, and it covers so much ground from like ancient history up to the present-day challenges facing Maharashtra.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how deep the history goes, and it was one of the things that struck me the most
Yeah.
when I was going through this material.
Just the sheer depth of history.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we should definitely explore.
Absolutely.
In this deep dive.
And I think our goal should be, as always, to just extract, the gems, the real important points for our listeners.
The most compelling insights.
Yes, exactly.
For sure.
Without, getting bogged down.
In the weeds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, and Maharashtra is a big one to tackle.
It is.
I mean, as your overview points out, it's the third largest state by area.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And the second most populous in India.
Second most populous.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. So that right there tells you it's a very significant place.
Hugely significant.
And of course, I think anyone listening to this probably knows that Mumbai is in Maharashtra.
Right.
The financial capital of India.
Right.
So, just from those two things alone, I think we can understand that we're dealing with a really important place in India.
Absolutely. A driving force in the Indian economy and culturally as well.
Right.
Really significant.
So let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about the historical roots of Maharashtra.
Okay, sure. So, as I said, the history goes way back.
Yeah.
And there's evidence of human settlements all the way back to the Stone Age.
Wow. So we're talking
prehistoric times here.
Yeah. So, people have been in this region for a very, very long time.
For millennia.
Yeah. And so as we sort of progress through time, we find mentions of Maharashtra, or the region that we know now as Maharashtra, in ancient epics like the Mahabharata.
Right, one of the great Indian epics.
Right.
And it's interesting because it kind of brings that history alive a little bit.
It does, yeah.
That this area was known and was part of the stories that were being told even back then.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So you can see how integral it was to the Indian subcontinent even back in ancient times.
So we have these ancient settlements. We have the mention in the Mahabharata. So then as we go through time, we start to see these early dynasties, these early kingdoms,
right?
Rising in the region that we now know as Maharashtra.
Right. You have the Mauryas,
right.
Satavahanas,
yes,
and the Vakatakas.
And each one of these dynasties obviously left its mark on the region.
Absolutely shaping its culture, its political landscape.
Yeah.
The Satavahanas, for example, were great patrons of the arts.
Oh, right.
Particularly Buddhist art and architecture.
Okay.
And you can still see remnants of that influence in Maharashtra today.
I see.
So it's really fascinating how these early dynasties laid the groundwork for what Maharashtra would become.
Okay, so then we move into the medieval period. And we have more dynasties. We have the Chalukyas, the Rashtrakutas, and the Yadavas.
Exactly. And again, each of these dynasties brought their own contributions to the region.
Okay, so then things start to get really interesting, I think, in the 17th century.
Ah, yes, the 17th century.
So what happens in the 17th century?
Well, this is when we see the rise of the Maratha Empire.
Okay.
Under the leadership of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj.
And he was a pretty significant figure, wasn't he?
He was a pivotal figure in the history of Maharashtra.
Yeah.
And really for India as a whole.
Okay.
He led the resistance against the Mughal Empire.
Wow.
Which was, at that time, one of the most powerful empires in the world.
And that resistance, that kind of becomes part of the DNA
Absolutely.
Of the region.
Yeah, it becomes a defining characteristic of the Maharashtrian identity.
So fast forward now, a couple hundred years.
Right.
And we're now in the British colonial period.
Right.
And Maharashtra is still showing that same kind of spirit of independence and resistance.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really interesting to see how that spirit
Yeah.
that was so evident in the 17th century with Shivaji
Right.
continues to manifest
Yeah.
in the fight against British rule.
Yeah. And that was a really, really significant role that they played in the independence movement.
Absolutely. I mean, your overview specifically mentions Bal Gangadhar Tilak,
Right.
a really influential figure
Yeah.
who was a strong advocate for Swaraj,
Right.
which means self-rule.
Right. Right.
And he was really a key figure in galvanizing the movement for independence.
Yeah. And the Quit India movement as well in 1942. There was very strong participation in Maharashtra.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, this region has been right at the heart
The heart of it.
of the story of India.
For centuries.
Yeah. Okay. So then we have the formation of the state of Maharashtra as we know it today.
Right. And that happens in 1960
Okay.
as part of the linguistic reorganization of states.
Right.
So basically, states were redrawn based on the language that was predominantly spoken in those areas.
Right.
And that's how we get the Maharashtra that we know today.
Okay. Fascinating. So we've gone from the Stone Age up until 1960,
Exactly. We've covered a lot of ground.
and now we're in the present day.
Right.
Okay. So let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about the land itself.
Okay.
Let's talk about the geography and the climate of Maharashtra.
Sounds good.
So, first of all, geographically, it's bordered by quite a few other states, right?
It is. It's got quite a few neighbors.
Okay, so who are they? Who are they?
Let's see. You've got Gujarat to the northwest,
Okay.
Madhya Pradesh to the North Chhattisgarh to the east,
Okay.
Telangana to the southeast,
Okay.
Karnataka to the south, and Goa to the southwest,
Right.
and of course, the Arabian Sea to the west.
So it's right there on the coast.
It's got a long coastline.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that long coastline probably contributes to the variety of geographical features that we see in Maharashtra.
Absolutely. It's a very diverse state
Yeah.
geographically.
So let's go through them. So we have the Western Ghats, also known as the Sahyadri Hills,
Right.
and they run along the western edge of the Deccan Plateau.
Exactly. And they're home to some amazing biodiversity.
Right.
They're actually recognized as a global biodiversity hotspot.
Wow.
So there's a huge variety of plants and animals,
Wow.
many of which are unique to that region.
I see.
And of course, you've got the hill stations
Yeah.
up in the mountains, which offer some respite from the heat.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So very, very different from life on the coast.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then, speaking of the coast, we have the Konkan coast,
Right.
which stretches along the Arabian Sea.
Beautiful coastline.
And yeah, as you would expect, lots of beautiful beaches.
Oh, yeah. Some stunning beaches.
Okay. All right. And then covering a large part of the interior of the state, we have the Deccan Plateau.
Right, which is a semi-arid region.
Semi-arid. Okay.
Yeah.
So that gives you a sense of the climate there.
Definitely much drier than the coastal areas.
Okay. So yeah, we've got the Western Ghats with all the biodiversity of the hill stations. And then we've got the Konkan coast with the beaches, and then this large plateau in the interior.
Right, a really diverse landscape.
Yeah, so the climate is probably just as varied as the geography.
Oh, absolutely. You've got everything from tropical to arid.
So like what would the climate be like in Mumbai, for example?
Mumbai has a tropical climate.
Okay.
Pretty humid, especially during the monsoon season.
Right.
But then you go to a region like Vidarbha in the east,
Yeah.
and it's much drier, much more arid.
Okay. Yeah. So big difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to something that's maybe even more rich and fascinating than the geography.
Okay.
Let's talk about the culture
Okay.
and traditions of Maharashtra.
All right.
So, as your overview points out, Maharashtra has this really rich cultural heritage, and it's been shaped by so many influences over the centuries.
It's a real melting pot of cultures. Yeah.
You've got Hindu influences, Buddhist influences,
Yeah.
and even colonial influences.
Right. So it's really a mix of everything.
Exactly, a blend of traditions and customs that have come together over centuries.
Okay, so maybe let's start with language, because language, I think, is always...
Right, it's fundamental.
Yes, fundamental to any culture.
Absolutely.
So the official language of Maharashtra is Marathi, right?
It is.
And it has a very, very strong literary tradition.
It does, very strong.
Yeah.
You've got figures like Sant Tukaram
Yeah.
from the 17th century, who was a devotional poet,
Okay.
and his work is still incredibly popular today.
Oh, wow.
And then you've got more contemporary writers like P.L. Deshpande,
All right.
who was known for his humor and his insights into Maharashtrian life.
Yeah. So it's a living literary tradition.
Very much so.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so in addition to the literature, we also have a very strong tradition of music and dance in Maharashtra.
We do.
Yeah. There are some really unique forms of music and dance that are specific to the region.
Like what?
So you've got Lavani,
Okay.
which is a very energetic form of dance and song.
Oh,
It's often performed by women,
okay.
and it's known for its fast-paced rhythms and its colorful costumes.
It's very lively.
It is very lively, very entertaining.
Okay.
Then you've got Tamasha,
Wow.
which is a form of folk theater.
Okay.
It's often satirical,
Okay.
and it deals with social issues.
I see.
And then you've got Pawada,
Okay.
which are ballad-like narrations of historical events.
Oh, wow.
They're often performed by men,
Okay.
and they're accompanied by traditional instruments.
So a very different feel from Lavani.
Yeah, very different.
Okay.
And then, of course, you can't talk about music and dance in Maharashtra without mentioning Bollywood
Right, of course.
and the Marathi film industry,
Yeah.
both of which are based in Mumbai.
Yeah, Mumbai is like the Hollywood of India.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they have a huge influence, not just in India, but globally.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Bollywood movies,
Right.
here in the U.S. And
Yeah, they're everywhere.
yeah,
It's a global phenomenon.
it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got literature, we've got music and dance. What about visual arts? What about art and craft?
Right. Well, Maharashtra has a really rich tradition of art and craft as well.
Okay.
You've got the Worli paintings,
Yes.
which are these beautiful tribal paintings
Right?
that are characterized by their geometric pattern.
Yeah, they're very distinctive.
They're very distinctive.
Yeah.
They're traditionally done on walls,
Okay.
but nowadays you can find them on all sorts of things, like fabric and paper and even pottery.
Yeah, and they've kind of made their way onto the global stage too, right?
They've become quite popular internationally.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Pathani saris.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
They're exquisite.
Yeah.
They're known for their intricate silk weaving and their vibrant colors. And then you've got Bidraware,
Okay.
which is a metal handicraft.
Okay.
It's made by inlaying silver or gold
Okay.
onto a blackened alloy.
Wow, that sounds really intricate.
It is. It's very delicate work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so very rich artistic tradition.
Really rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the economy of Maharashtra.
Okay.
And, there's no secret that Maharashtra is an economic powerhouse.
It is. It's the most industrialized state in India
Right.
and a major contributor to the national GDP.
Yeah. So let's break it down. Let's talk about the different sectors of the economy.
Oh, sure.
So, agriculture.
Right.
I mean, is agriculture still a big part of the economy?
It is. It's still significant. The main crops are sugarcane,
Okay.
cotton and pulses.
Okay.
But Maharashtra is also a leading producer of some things that you might not expect,
Oh, like what?
like Alfonso mangoes.
Oh, yeah. Those are really good.
They are.
I've heard of those.
They're considered to be among the best mangoes in the world.
Wow.
And grapes.
Okay.
Maharashtra is a major producer of grapes as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So agriculture is still there. It's still important.
Yes, definitely.
But of course, when we think of the economy of Maharashtra, we think of industry and trade.
Right. And Mumbai is really at the heart of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the financial hub of India,
Yeah.
home to the Bombay Stock Exchange,
Right.
the BSE,
Right.
and countless major corporations.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really the center of the action.
It is. It's where the deals are made.
Yeah.
It's where the money flows.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to note that Pune is becoming a major hub for IT and the automobile industry.
It is. It's a rising star
Yeah.
in the Indian economy.
So it's not just Mumbai.
No, it's not just Mumbai anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really good to see that there's some diversification there.
Definitely.
Okay. And then of course we have to talk about tourism, which is a major industry in Maharashtra.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising given all that the state has to offer.
So what are some of the key attractions for tourists in Maharashtra?
Well, you've got the Ajanta and Ellora caves,
Yes.
which are UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
Right.
They're ancient rock-cut caves
Yeah.
that are filled with incredible sculptures and paintings.
Wow.
They're really a must-see for anyone visiting Maharashtra.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. They're pretty amazing.
They are.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Gateway of India in Mumbai,
Right.
which is a iconic landmark.
Yes.
It was built in the early 20th century
Okay.
to commemorate the visit of King George V and Queen Mary to India.
Okay.
And then you've got the hill stations like Mahabaleshwar and Lonavala,
Yeah.
which are popular destinations for people looking to escape the heat.
Right.
They're very scenic,
Okay.
and they offer a lot of opportunities for hiking and outdoor activities.
Okay. Yeah. So something for everyone.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So very strong economy in Maharashtra.
Very strong.
Yeah. All right. So let's touch on politics now.
Okay.
And the political landscape in Maharashtra is described as being quite dynamic.
It is. It's a very vibrant political scene
Yeah.
with a number of key players.
So who are the main political parties in Maharashtra?
Well, the main ones are the Shiv Sena, the Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP,
Okay.
the Indian National Congress,
Right.
and the Nationalist Congress Party, or NCP.
Okay. So it's a multi-party system.
It is.
Okay. And Maharashtra has a bicameral legislature,
It does.
which means that there are two houses, right?
That's right.
Okay, and so what are those two houses?
So you have the Legislative Assembly
Okay,
and the Legislative Council.
okay. And what's the difference between the two?
Well, the Legislative Assembly is the lower house,
Okay,
and it's directly elected by the people.
okay,
And the Legislative Council is the upper house,
okay.
and its members are elected indirectly.
By members of the Legislative Assembly,
I see.
local bodies and other groups.
So it's a bit more of a kind of representative body.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It's designed to provide a more deliberative
Okay.
and less partisan check on the Legislative Assembly.
I see. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's worth noting that Maharashtra has produced quite a few prominent national leaders.
It's a state that has a lot of political clout on the national stage.
Okay. Well, let's move on to something a little more celebratory.
Okay.
Let's talk about festivals and celebrations in Maharashtra.
All right.
And it sounds like it's a state that really knows how to celebrate.
It does. It has a very vibrant festival calendar,
Yeah.
reflecting the diversity of its culture.
Yeah. So we have Hindu festivals, Muslim festivals, Christian festivals.
Exactly. All celebrated with great enthusiasm.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say is the biggest, the most important festival in Maharashtra?
Well, I think Ganesh Chaturthi would have to be the biggest. It's a 10-day festival.
Wow. 10 days.
10 days, yeah, dedicated to the elephant-headed god Ganesh.
Okay.
It's celebrated with a lot of pomp and show.
I see.
There are huge processions
Right.
with these elaborate idols of Ganesh.
Okay.
And then at the end of the festival,
Yeah.
the idols are immersed in water.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really spectacular event.
Wow. So 10 days of celebrating?
10 days of feasting and dancing and music.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I imagine Diwali is also celebrated in Maharashtra.
Oh, absolutely. Diwali celebrated all over India.
Right?
And it's a big festival in Maharashtra as well.
Yeah.
It's the Festival of Lights.
Right.
And it's celebrated by Hindus, Jains, and Sikhs.
Okay.
It's a time for family and friends to get together,
Right.
to exchange gifts,
Okay.
and to celebrate the victory of good over evil.
Okay. And Gudi Padwa, is that celebrated in Maharashtra as well?
It is Gudi Padwa is the Marathi New Year.
Okay.
It's celebrated in the spring, and it's a time for new beginnings
Right.
and for hope and prosperity.
Okay. So lots of festivals,
Yeah,
lots of celebrating.
a lot to celebrate.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about food now,
Okay.
because every region in India has its own distinct cuisine,
Absolutely.
and Maharashtra is no exception.
Oh, exception.
So, tell me about Maharashtrian cuisine.
Well, it's known for its variety of flavors.
Okay.
You've got spicy dishes, sweet dishes,
Okay.
sour dishes,
Okay.
and everything in between.
So there's something for everyone.
There is something for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say are some of the must-try dishes for someone visiting Maharashtra?
Well, if you're in Mumbai,
Yeah.
you definitely have to try the street food,
Okay.
like vada pav,
Okay.
which is a deep-fried potato patty in a bun.
Okay.
It's a very popular snack,
Okay.
and it's delicious.
Okay.
And then there's misal pav,
Okay.
which is a spicy lentil curry
Okay.
served with bread. It's a hearty dish,
Okay.
and it's perfect for a cold day.
Okay. And then for something sweet?
For something sweet, you have to try puran poli,
Okay.
which is a sweet flatbread stuffed with lentils and jaggery.
Oh.
It's a very traditional dish,
Yep.
and it's often made for special occasions.
I see.
And then there's modak,
Okay.
which is a steamed dumpling
Okay.
filled with coconut and jaggery.
Okay.
It's a very popular sweet,
Yeah.
especially during Ganesh Chaturthi.
Okay. So that's when those modak come out.
Yeah, that's when you see them everywhere.
Okay.
And then if you're on the coast,
Yeah.
you have to try the seafood.
Okay.
The Malvani cuisine from the Konkan region is especially good.
What's that like?
Well, it's known for its use of coconut
Okay.
and kokum,
Okay.
which is a souring agent.
Okay.
It's a very flavorful cuisine.
Okay. So very different from the food that you would find in the interior of the state.
Yeah, very different.
Okay, great. So we've talked about the geography, the history, the culture, the festivals, the food.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's touch on education,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
education is obviously very important.
It's crucial for any state's development.
And Maharashtra is known for having a very strong education system.
It does.
Yeah.
It has a number of world-class institutions.
So what are some of the top institutions in Maharashtra?
Well, you've got the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, or IIT Bombay, which is one of the premier engineering schools in India.
Yeah.
You've got the University of Mumbai,
Right.
which is one of the oldest and largest universities in India.
Okay.
And you got Savitribai Phule Pune University, which is another very well-respected university.
Okay. Yeah. So very strong network of universities.
Very strong.
And colleges and research institutions.
And absolutely a real hub for education and innovation.
Okay. So that bodes well for the future in the state.
It does.
Okay. So let's wrap things up by talking about some of the challenges and future prospects facing Maharashtra.
Okay.
So, as with any rapidly developing region, there are always challenges.
There are,
Right.
and Maharashtra is no exception.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that Maharashtra is facing today?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is urbanization.
Okay.
Mumbai is one of the most densely populated cities in the world.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
It is, and that puts a lot of strain
Yeah.
on the city's infrastructure.
Right.
Things like housing, transportation,
Mm-hmm.
sanitation,
Yeah, all of it. Yeah.
water supply, all of those things are under pressure.
Right.
And then you've got water scarcity,
Okay.
which is a major issue in many parts of Maharashtra.
And is that related to the climate?
It is partly related to the climate.
Okay.
The state has a very diverse climate,
Right.
as we discussed.
Yeah.
And some parts of the state are very prone to drought.
Okay.
And then you've got farmers' issues. Agriculture is still a major sector of the economy,
Yeah.
but farmers are facing a lot of challenges.
Like what?
Well, things like low crop prices,
Okay.
high input costs,
Right.
indebtedness.
Right.
All of those things are really putting a strain
Yeah.
on farmers.
Okay. So some very real challenges.
Very real challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about the future? What are some of the things that Maharashtra is doing to kind of address these challenges and to look towards the future?
Well, I think there's a lot of optimism about the future of Maharashtra.
Okay.
The state government is investing heavily in infrastructure.
Okay.
They're also promoting smart city initiatives,
Okay.
which are aimed at using technology
Okay.
to improve the quality of life in cities.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And they're also focusing on developing the IT and services sectors,
Right.
which are seen as key drivers of economic growth.
Okay.
And then there's tourism.
Right.
Maharashtra has a lot to offer tourists. Yeah.
And the state government is working to develop sustainable tourism, so that the benefits of tourism can be shared more widely.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of potential there.
There's a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We've done a deep dive.
We have done a very thorough deep dive on Maharashtra.
Exactly.
So just to kind of sum things up for our listeners, what would you say are the key takeaways from our discussion today?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that Maharashtra is a state of incredible diversity.
Yeah.
Geographically, culturally, economically.
It really is, yeah.
It's a state with a rich history
Yeah.
and a vibrant present.
Yeah.
And it's a state that's facing some very real challenges.
Right.
But it's also a state that's full of potential.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting to think about, the role that Maharashtra has played in the history of India.
Right.
And the role that it continues to play today.
Yeah. As a major economic and cultural force.
Right.
And I think it's also interesting to think about the future of Maharashtra.
Yeah.
How will the state continue to develop?
Right.
How will it address the challenges that it's facing?
Right.
And how will it continue to contribute to the growth and development of India?
Those are all great questions.
Yeah, those are questions for our listeners to ponder.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, this has been a fascinating conversation.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with me.
You're welcome.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Maharashtra.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.